Hey, what up? It's your boy, Steve. It's your co-host, Steve, of course, welcoming you to the show. This is Plain Donuts. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, we did it. We're 5 seconds in.
Whoop, whoop.
Hey, welcome to... I shouted. Sorry, I shouted out.
Hey, welcome to Plain Donuts Podcast.
Oh, you...
Beat ya.
Boom roasted.
Boom roasted.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Steve.
I'm your other co-host, Alicia. Today we have a guest.
It is Daniel Swenson.
Woo.
Hello.
Author and Dungeon Crawlers radio host.
He's gonna make us so famous.
I don't know.
I don't-
Maybe.
Maybe. You know famous people.
I do. I know famous people. Through hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've been podcasting for like 9 years,
Yeah,
right?
a
9
long
years.
time,
We'll,
yeah.
we'll get into that.
Yes.
So normally, the way we start the show is by talking about how our week has been. So we release on a weekly cycle.
All right.
I went to FyreCon last week. We both went to
We
FyreCon.
went to
We could
FyreCon.
talk about that experience. We all three went to FyreCon.
Yes.
Now that I
Check that
think
out.
about it.
Yeah. So I was only able to go on Saturday because I was working, but Steve was able to go for the entire convention.
Mhm.
So maybe you should start since you
Okay,
have more
sure.
FyreCon experience.
It was crazy. I don't know how much I said at FyreCon, but I did talk about a butt. You'll have to look out for that episode later. Anyway, that's a joke, kind of. It was a weird time. You have to look out for that episode later. Anyway.
We did record a live episode.
We did. We recorded a live episode on Saturday. It started on Thursday?
Thursday,
yeah, that's right. And I went there, and they didn't have credentials printed yet for me. I don't know. It was kind of weird. The credentials stuff was a little messy, but everything else was really good. Like, the whole convention was, like, well organized, I felt like. Except for, like...
Welcome to Year One Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things
Is this
happen.
the first year?
It is the first year for
Okay,
it.
wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
first year is rough.
Yeah.
Things happen.
It wasn't bad.
No, it wasn't bad. But you see small things like credentials missing.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Well, and I noticed that, like, I happened to walk up while Larry and Tony were checking in. Larry Correa and Tony Weisskopf from Bane,
Yep.
who were, like, kind of, like, big pull names, right?
Yep.
And they were like, oh, we don't have your placards yet. And I was like, guys! But, yeah, first year, I guess.
But at the same time, it's Tony Weisskopf and Larry Correa. They don't need those.
Yeah, so,
I mean,
yeah.
If you've ever met Larry Correa, you just see him walk in the room and you already know it's Larry Correa.
Yeah. He's a large man.
He's a very tall man, has a very large presence,
Yes.
and he has a very loud voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
is
super nice guy.
Free with his opinions.
Yes,
too.
very free with his opinions, but super nice guy.
Yeah, he actually is a really nice guy.
Yeah.
It's cool.
How nice of a guy is he?
Well,
Like you call him in the middle of the night if your tire has a flat, and he'll come and help you.
I
Kinda
don't
nice
know
guy?
him.
He lives up on his own mountain, so I don't know if he'd do that. Yeah,
But he would invite you to the mountain.
he has Yard Moose Mountain. He literally owns a mountain
Really?
where his house is on. That's how well his books have done.
Yeah,
so it's
that's-
awesome.
I wanna reach that
I
level
want to
of
be able to
success.
reach that point where I can own a mountain too.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's kind of, it's so like the persona of Larry Correa to own a mountain by yourself, like,
Well,
where he can shoot guns.
so my buddies and I have developed our zombie survival plan,
Okay,
and it's to get to Larry's house.
that makes sense.
If we make it to Larry's house, we're safe.
So, for context, if you've never heard of Larry Correa, he's the writer of the Monster Hunter International series, and that series got started as a self-published series,
Yep.
but he got a lot of traction from gun forums.
Yep.
Like, he basically sold the book on gun forums. And because he's like a gun nut.
He is a gun nut.
Yeah,
yes.
he used to own a store and, like, sold guns and stuff. So, I think, if I remember correctly.
Did he-
I don't know on that aspect. I do know he was like the accountant at like Hill Air Force Base.
Oh, cool.
So the story of an accountant that goes out and starts fighting monsters, you kind of can understand how well he knows about
Yeah.
accounting because he was an accountant. But yeah, he is a gun nut, awesome guy,
Anyway.
and it's amazing. I mean, he is super nice. Like, you know, you can message him on his page or on Facebook, and he'll respond.
Mhm.
And it's not his secretary or his assistant is responding to. It's him.
Him?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
He's got some really interesting writing online about like how to make money in publishing and stuff. And most of it is about how you just have to put in work.
Yeah.
It is.
Which is true. I was talking to somebody else today about the sort of different philosophies of writing for some people. Like I know Pat Rothfuss sort of eschews that whole like you have to write as a grind kind of attitude, because he feels like to him it's a piece of art. And he's like, inspiration doesn't just come because you're writing or whatever. Some people would disagree. I personally think it's a blend of things. You have to, when inspiration strikes, you have to be ready to take it where it goes. You know what I mean? And if you haven't practiced, you won't know how to use those skills. But anyway.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's just like a painter.
Yeah.
Anyone goes up to a canvas, throw some paint on there.
Yeah.
Yes, it's art, but can anyone determine what you've painted? Is it supposed to be an orange and an apple and a banana, but it looks more like something on the side of the road that got hit by a 4x4?
Maybe.
It could, you know. But even then, that could be considered abstract or something.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I heard a quote from Picasso once where he was going through like a children's art show, and he's like, I've trained my whole life to draw like these kids.
That's like the whole like premise of being an artist is to like learning to like let go of your work and kind of just let things happen.
Oh, that is hard.
It's really tough. You kind of, because children just kind of like, I'm gonna draw a person or a dog, and they just kind of do it, and then artists are like, but why? You know. Yeah. So you just kind of have to. It's our world's kind of a weird, pretentious.
Well, I mean, not even that, just writing
situation.
When you actually hand the book over to the publisher, and now, you know, all the editing's done. They've printed it. There is nothing more you can do to that thing.
Yeah.
You just have to be
and
like,
you just
well,
have to
it's
say,
done.
all right, it's out there. It's tough. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, FyreCon.
Yes, back to FyreCon.
It was actually
we went
really
on
fun.
a tangent.
I went to, this is the tangential podcast.
Yeah, so if you don't like it, get out.
Not this particular episode of literally the whole podcast is one
like
tangent. Anyway, and there we go again.
Okay. So FyreCon is. We probably should explain what FyreCon is.
Okay, sure.
We didn't really do that.
It's a fantasy and science fiction writing and art convention.
Yes,
that's basically
pretty
how
much
I've described it in every podcast for the last 2 months. So anyway, because we kept trying to get people to show up to our podcast recording. Anyway, so I went to the first panel that Larry and Tony were in because I was like, it was an interesting one about monsters that aren't villains, and I thought that was cool. And then I ran into Corinne, and I went to one of her presentations that day, and I had lunch with her and her husband Kelly. I think that was Friday actually that we had lunch. But anyway, that was really fun. It was a good convention. I really liked it.
So is that your first convention ever?
No, I went to LTUE once.
Okay.
That's my first. That was
What
my
is
first
that?
convention.
So LTUE is the same thing as FyreCon, but down in Provo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Literally the same.
And I've been to some other programming conventions and stuff, but it's not the same vein. It's a similar idea, but
you're gonna have some fun when you go to Salt Lake Comic Con or San Diego.
I know. I wanted to go.
These bigger cons are, they'll blow your mind compared to this.
Well, maybe one day we can get in for free. Until then, I can never justify the money of a ticket to myself. Yeah. I'm like...
I used to go to, what was it, Anime Bonsai.
Yeah.
I used to go to that every year. Especially, it first started out when I was in high school, so I'd make my costumes, go down the artist alley, go to all these panels and stuff. I was really hard into it, and then just faded away.
Did you want to do something in high school with anime? Were you I want to make...
I was really into drawing comics, even as, in middle school and elementary school. I would, make a weekly comic for, our, newspaper or something about, I called it Back to School, and it was just, a cast of, an ensemble cast of characters dealing with high school problems, but it was, ironic because it was just really stupid problems that didn't really make that much of a difference in the long run.
Was it good?
But that's high school.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Oh man, How did you have the foresight to
Meta.
make a comic like that in high school?
I don't know. I just thought it would be really funny. And so
to adults, they're like, "This is life,"
like
and
this
to
is
kids,
real life.
they're
I
like,
was like,
"No, the
this
problems
is so
are
real. Yeah, like
That's
these
funny.
lockers are too small for my backpack, and now I have to carry it everywhere. Like, why do we even have lockers in the first place? So
That's a good
it
question.
was just stuff like that.
I had a dream that I had to, it was a while back, but I had to go back to high school because they're like, oh, turns out you didn't get this credit. Your diploma's going to be revoked if you don't come take this class.
Oh, no.
Or whatever.
That would be torture.
Yeah,
That'd be
so.
Like extreme
awful.
torture.
So-
I've seen school nowadays, and no, I wouldn't want to go back.
So bad. I hear now that teachers don't even like make students put their phones away anymore because
Nope,
it's impossible.
they can't.
Which is so weird to me. The first time I experienced that was in a college class, and the professor was writing some notes on the board, and I'm like writing in my notebook or whatever, and then someone walks up to the board and takes a picture of it with their cell phone, and I'm like, what are you doing?
See that I find acceptable to take a picture of the notes, but no, there's kids that are sitting there and they're like done with it, whatever the assignment is, and they're still class and like, can I pull out my phone and play games? And I'm like, what in the world?
But I don't know, for me it was like, you're not going to remember it because it's going to get lost in all your other pictures that you take with your dumb phone, and I mean,
Well,
you memorize stuff better if you actually like physically write it down instead of just like...
maybe they go home and then they do that.
That's true, but yeah, I was just like, who is this guy? I'm putting in the work and he's just taking...
Every kid learns for themselves, Alicia.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm
Eventually.
feeling really talked down to right now.
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry. Oh, jeez. For some reason, I reacted like you were serious, even though I knew you weren't. In my mind, I was like, oh no, I made someone feel bad. Must apologize.
That was so good. That was the exact perfect representation of Steven's personality.
You tricked me.
The apology.
You tricked me into apologizing.
Sweet.
I'm never going to forgive you for this.
Oh, that makes me feel so bad.
There it is. There's the lead-in.
Terrible.
Apologize again.
No. Just kidding. I'm sorry.
So FyreCon was awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. Thank you for bringing us back on track.
Take a look at go to their Facebook page. I think do
You
they
can
have
go
a-
to FyreCon.com.
FyreCon.com.
Check out why.
It'll be back next year.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it will be. It was a good convention. They had a lot of like really quality presenters and panelists and stuff. It was really good.
Yeah.
We recorded on Saturday night. It was
How did that go?
a little disappointing but good. Like it was funny because when at our start time, which was at a weird interval compared to everything else,
Yeah.
we had one person in the room. They showed up at 6, which was the start time, and we were like,
And all the classes were starting in the half hour.
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Which is weird.
Yeah.
we were like, okay.
Yeah.
But then, so it was funny because we had just talked to him. We'd gone downstairs and handed out some flyers, and we were like, you can come if you want. And he's like, maybe I will. And then he did.
Yeah.
We're like, you made it.
Yeah.
So that guy's name was
Joseph Jones.
I don't know if we can dox him like that.
Oh well, you just did.
Joseph
Beat him
Jones, there aren't that many of those. Just kidding.
There's so many of
There
them.
are so many
You
Joseph
won't be able to
Joneses.
find
Anyway, he was cool. It was really cool to have him show up. And then we just waited because I knew that Corinne and her husband wanted to come, and we're like, well, at least once they get here, we'll have 2 more people
Yeah.
for sure.
And
So
we
they,
considered failure to be 0 people.
Yeah, so we definitely
one
didn't
person-
fail.
Yeah.
it felt a little personally like I had gone there in order to like participate in the con and hand out flyers and be like, come to the podcast. And in my hubris, I was like, I could make friends. They'll find me gregarious and want to come see the show. And then like that's just not the way people really are. So
I think we had lots of things working against us, but it's okay. It's a learning experience and it was fun. So
well, and they were laughing. Like,
To make you feel better, I've done live shows at cons before. We have a good audience, and they've stuck us in a crummy time slot. Like the end of the day
Yeah.
on Saturday. Everyone's getting ready to go home, and I've had 5, 6 people show up.
Yeah.
So it happens. It's just when they put you in a later time slot, everyone's tired. They
Yeah.
don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
And then, especially at the end of a con, everyone's ready to go home.
Yeah, exactly.
I was kind of trying to, toward the end, like somebody's like, it'd be nice to, because your brain might be tired. And I was like, well, we're not going to ask you to use your brain too much.
Yeah.
So maybe we could just sell it as like an entertainment angle. But also, like, our podcast is one of those things that you kind of have to be bought in to buy in. It's
Yeah.
sort of weird just because it's like, it's a quirky comedy podcast that, it's just weird. And then sometimes I rant. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You've got time.
And I don't feel like, occasionally I'll give sort of a state of the podcast on the podcast, which may or may not be good. But, we've had some good bumps from different people that have come on the podcast and stuff. So it's just cool. It's really fun to do, and I think it's worthwhile. So
it will come. It takes time. It's lots of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know about the work in the moment. I'm working on the work in over the long haul.
Yes.
So that was my experience at FyreCon. It was pretty good overall. My wife and I went and saw Wonder Woman last night. It was good. It was a nice time.
That's it. That's all. It was good.
Okay, well, fine.
Come on. It was amazing.
I was so hyped up during that movie.
Did you see? Okay.
I was like coming out of there like, ching.
So it was really good. I will give you my brief review, I suppose. It was really good. It was the best DC movie I've seen since the Christopher Nolan Batmans. And I haven't seen all of the others, but some of them. Sorry. There were some beats in it that I was kind of like, that feels unnecessary. Or like, so the boat scene, I felt like kind of was very stumbly.
But it was funny.
I didn't think it was that funny. So here's the thing. And I don't think it's super spoilery to talk about it. If you haven't seen Wonder Woman, skip ahead 5 minutes. So anyway, in the boat scene, they talk about, like, she's like, what's marriage? And he has to explain to her what marriage is. And I'm like, come on. 200 plus languages. How did you get English on the island and not learn the concept of marriage? Well, that is dumb.
No, that's actually the beauty of it, because the Amazons are not part of human society. They're the mediators between humans and the gods. So they never had men to marry.
Right.
And so that's not part of their culture. And she was born after they were separated from man. So they wouldn't have brought that up ever.
It's kind of like a thing where if you don't experience like it regularly, like there's no need to like learn that concept.
Okay, but I don't buy it. That's the whole thing. Is like he's like, oh well, it's this thing, and he's like, I guess you don't know about the other parts of marriage then, and she's like, oh no, I've read all 12 treatises on pleasure or whatever, and it's like, come on, you read these books about pleasure, but you don't know about being married. How do you have all this education but have never heard of the concept of marriage? Like, that's dumb to me, but I like the movie a lot.
I don't know, Steve. You seem to be really fired up.
But if you remember, at the end of that, she's like, "Ooh, did you bring those?" She's like, "No, wouldn't want to read them anyways, because pretty much they say that men aren't really needed except for procreation, and otherwise women can be happy without them."
Fine.
Preach.
So
yeah.
I don't know. I guess that part just felt kind of like it felt like an agenda to me as opposed to the rest of the movie.
I can see where that is. It did feel a little odd, but at the same time, it was a funny moment.
Sure, and it was
because he was stumbling, trying to explain himself. Well, being in that 1940s attitude.
Yeah.
And having this really attractive woman here, and this is like, you can. Why won't you sleep next to me?
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
But overall, it was great. Probably one of the best the new DC movies that are coming out. Really so I'm super excited for Justice League now.
Yeah.
Well, are they making a separate like Aquaman movie too, or is that okay?
That's probably the Flash not for. One. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think it's interesting how like. The Flash on the CW is like one of their most popular shows right now. Yep. And they're using different actors in the movie series and it's like, oh man, people are going to have to hold these two timelines differently in their heads.
No, it's really easy. Yeah. the movies is a different Earth than the TV series.
Right, and you already have to do that
Because
with...
you have the multiverse. And I actually
Right.
like it better than what Marvel was doing with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because there's certain points in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. you have no clue what the storyline is unless you've gone and watched Winter Soldier or watched Thor. And so you can kind of get lost a little bit where those are separated. You don't have to worry about watching a movie.
That's fair.
So I like that.
I think it's...
But everyone has their own opinion.
Yeah, but... I mean, people in fandoms are going to have to start, like, breaking apart timelines in their heads.
Yes.
Just like people in comic books have had to do for years.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, darn.
So, anyway, FyreCon was great. I
Yes.
really liked it. And Wonder Woman was really good.
Whoop! This chair goes back further than I thought.
Maybe I should have given you this.
Nah, I'm good.
No,
I just
slicey
remember not
chair.
to lean backwards.
The other thing that made me a little bit like, it was not as ranty, but like when Steve started noticing spies in the streets, there was some stuff where I was like, come on, that is like so tropey, like with the guy looking creepily over his newspaper. I was like, why do you have to do that? It made it feel like less. It made it feel more whimsical to me than I thought they intended it to, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know anything about
I liked
movies.
it.
I really liked all of the movie overall.
Yeah.
There were just some parts I was like, eh.
And that's okay.
Anyway.
I've seen it 3
Your
times.
opinion's terrible.
So we're good.
I'm just
That's
kidding.
fine. People will disagree with me about lots of things forever, and
And
that's
some
okay.
people will like his opinion, and that's fine.
Oh,
Even
hopefully.
if it's wrong.
Alicia, tell us your experience of Wonder Woman.
Every part's amazing, and you're wrong. No, yeah. it was-
How's your week been? Tell us about your experience of week and FyreCon. Tell us about today, because I know today was an exciting day
today
for you.
was so cold. I probably shouldn't talk too much about it because I have
Oh,
cold.
right, because it was work stuff.
But it was. I
You
mean,
had to go to Lagoon in the
I did
cold,
have to go to
basically.
Lagoon. It was cold. But yeah,
Sucks.
it was actually. I'll tell.
That's
about
like the
this
last
one
time I went to
experience.
Lagoon. It was like torrential rain.
Yeah,
the whole
it was
time.
like 50 degrees and it was kind of raining. It was super, super windy, as you knew. But I was on the Sky Coaster, and if you are not familiar with the Sky Coaster, it is a ride that kind of is essentially like a tram, or not tram, what's the thing that they have?
A
on
Sky Coaster?
ski
Is that what they're-
resorts.
I forget what they're called now.
Yeah.
Now that you asked me to think of the name.
It's tram.
Tram.
And
We'll
It's
just
a
say
Sky
that.
Tram.
Sure,
It's-
Sky Tram.
Yeah, you sit in this little
Little
two-seater,
bucket. Yeah,
bucket, then
yeah.
you go
You go
across
up
the park.
really-
There
yeah.
are people listening right now saying, "This is what it's called!"
Yeah, they're screaming at it like,
And I remember going on that all the time as a kid and
Yeah.
dropping stuff on people.
The Sky Coaster's cool because it takes you all the way across
it's
the
fun.
park.
I liked it.
Except for in the wind.
Yeah, except for when it's windy and
And then
raining
it stops.
sideways, and it stopped. It really
That's
did.
the one thing I hate about that ride. It always stops. I've never gone on it where I've gone all the way
Yeah.
across with it never
I-
stopping.
It stopped, and it was so cold. I was up there, and then this kid next to me, not like, I was not sitting with a random child, let me clarify. There was a child in a separate, going the opposite direction of me, who wanted to play Marco Polo, and he thought it was the coolest thing, because he's like, Marco. Like to random people, and then I said Polo. He's like, oh, like, oh, cool, you're having fun, I guess. But
You did it.
it was freezing, and I'm like, why did I do this? Like, and I was like the first person there out of my work group, so I just
Because they
was
figured
chilling.
it was June. It wouldn't be 50
yeah.
degrees.
Oh my gosh, it was so cold, and so
Come on. It's June
yeah,
12th.
it's June.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes you get rain in the summer, but how can you predict? You
Yeah.
know.
Well, they're predicting there'll be snow in the mountains this evening.
Really?
I actually believe that.
Yeah, there's a huge cold front moving in, which is just... I've seen it snow in July here before. It's been a while, but it's just like, come on.
Yeah.
It's the summer.
I just want it to be warm.
all I
Is
can
that-
say
that's
is
all I
there's
ask.
people that think of global warming. I'm just going to say you're crazy.
Because
it's cold
I get
in
it.
June.
I get it. Remember the snowball on the floor of the
Oh,
Senate?
jeez.
It's not global warming, it's climate change. And the reason it's cold is because the oceans are getting more cold water in them and the winds are getting colder because of it.
Oh.
It just...
That's also what they said in the 70s.
Well...
They said we were having global cooling.
Well, in terms of like...
I just think the weather pattern of the Earth just changes. You know,
It
it's
does.
like, okay, you're too hot. Let's
Well,
cool
that's
down.
I think
it's too cold. Let's warm up.
I agree. I think climate scientists would say that it's not the momentary shifts that are causing problems. It's the fact that it's a shift that is intended. That's a funny word to say if you're thinking of science. Most scientists would not say things were intended to be a certain way. But and I wouldn't even say most scientists, because some scientists are theists. Nonetheless. Anyway.
Wow.
Sorry. Wow. I'm like getting in all these tangents.
We're going everywhere.
We're going there.
I think climate scientists would say that this is a process that usually takes like thousands and thousands of years and is not taking that period of time and is going way faster, could potentially cause, sooner problems than should be there. Like California will fall into the sea or something. I don't know.
Everyone says that. It hasn't happened yet.
Oh, that's true.
With Escape from LA, that happened then, right? Jake Plissken had to go in.
And the Mayans were wrong about the end of the world, too. Although I heard Brian Posehn do a bit about, he's like, you know what happens when your calendar ends? You get a new calendar.
Yeah.
So,
what was the episode? Do you remember watching Arthur at all? Or was it...
The cartoon?
Yeah.
No. Not really.
You don't remember it? There was an episode where they talked about that your year would be cursed if you didn't get your calendar out of your house on New Year's Eve, your old calendar, and take it outside and throw it in the trash before, the new year came in.
Mm-hmm.
So that just reminded me of that.
Oh, no. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
For children.
I just think the Mayans couldn't find a big enough rock to build another calendar.
Yeah.
Could be.
They spent a lot of time on that rock. And they're
Yeah.
We'll just call this one done. If we need more in the future, we'll figure it out.
We'll all be dead for sure by this time.
They were right!
Colonialism.
Too soon? Boom, roasted.
What happened to them?
So anyway, is that it? I mean, you could tell more good stories if you got
a friend
them.
of mine came to town this weekend, and that was super fun. Shout out to Dennis. How are you doing? Back in AZ, I'm sure you're missing the cooler weather.
I know,
here.
it's probably like 1,000 degrees in Arizona right now.
It's like, he said it was 112 when he left, and at night it's around the 90s and 80s.
Talk about that global cooling. I'm just kidding. Boom, roasted.
Arizona is another one of those. It's super hot, and then they get these massive monsoons.
Yeah.
And it just floods everywhere.
February in Phoenix is crazy.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there before, and people think it's bad when, we have an inch of water on our roads. Imagine giant pools of water all the way halfway up the door of your car.
It's bonkers. They're like, this road's closed for a few hours until this rain is gone.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I saw a guy kayak across a parking lot. There was enough water for it to flow.
I love those videos to see people literally jet skiing in the road, or kind of just hang because I mean, what do? You kind of just have to be like, well, I guess we're gonna hang out and
can't drive anywhere. Let's do something.
I would hate to be driving in Phoenix in the rain. It's already really bad driving there.
And then it gets super windy and it kicks up the dust and sticks to your car, and they have to wash your car. Ugh.
That sounds infuriating.
That happens here, though.
That's true.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Washing your car sucks.
I hate washing my car.
Well, cool.
Cool story.
Daniel, welcome to the beginning of our podcast.
Yay, we're finally at the beginning.
It's always.
We've just traveled everywhere, and now we're at the beginning. So for those of you who've been listening, wow, that was a long start.
How was your experience at FyreCon, by the way?
FyreCon was good. It's always enjoyable seeing people that I know and talking to them, and especially this time around, because previously I've always been there as my podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And now I'm there as a writer.
Oh cool.
Which I've kind of sat in on panels before to talk about writing, and I've always kind of felt like the outsider. Like, hey man, I kind of know about writing, and I'm here. Because everyone's up there. Oh yeah, I'm so and so, and this is my book, and this is my series, and blah blah. I'm like, I'm from Dungeon Crawlers.
So speaking of Dungeon Crawlers, I listened to the episode with Roar. I forgot the name of the author.
Kara Cormack.
That's right. I knew it had two C's. But it was funny because I was like, oh, I've never heard of her. This must be her first book or whatever. I went to her website. She's released like 12 novels.
I know.
And I was like, you've got to be maybe 25. How did you write this many books?
She lives in New York, and so I'm sure she budgets a lot of her time.
Yeah. But
and I don't know, because it took me a long time to write one.
yeah.
But there are authors that are that way. Michael Brent Collins, he's been writing for 6 years now, I think, 5 or 6 years, and he's released 40 books.
Yeah,
Wow,
that guy is
holy
crazy. That, I mean,
He is
So
a
what
machine.
what does that look like daily? Does he talk about that?
He writes and writes and writes.
Yeah.
and
I mean, does he
writes.
just treat it like a 12-hour, like, I'm going to write for 12 hours?
He,
and that's
he,
what I'm
it's a
gonna do.
full-time job for him, and he does write quite a bit, plus
Yeah.
he has his family. But great guy, don't get me wrong. I just don't know how to write that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He used to be a lawyer, I guess.
Yeah, he
Oh,
did. He was a
that
lawyer.
explains a
So
little
is
bit of that,
DJ
actually.
Butler. I don't know if you ever.
I didn't know DJ Butler was a lawyer.
Yep,
Is he still, or is he...
No.
I know he does, like, consulting.
Yeah,
and
he does
stuff,
consulting now, but he used to be a lawyer, and so did Michael Brent Collins. And there's a lot of people that are now authors that used to be lawyers or are still kind of lawyers.
That
Paul
actually
S.
makes
Kemp
sense
is
because
one,
like
too.
the work ethic of a lawyer, you have to like pump out a bunch of like legalese
Oh, yeah.
like very very quickly.
Those giant documents are just
yeah, it's like
ugh,
600 pages of
soul-sucking, crushing,
I have a friend...
and nothing makes sense.
I have a friend named Trinity who used to be a pastor, and then now he's a lawyer. Oh, he was a pastor, and then started writing some books, and now he's a lawyer.
different transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone transitions through life. It's interesting, but it's really good to see those people and talk with them, and to kind of, and they've never, when you go to those conventions, they don't treat you differently. It's not like, oh, you're a podcaster, but
Yeah.
it's just nice to have them. They're like, oh, they're just as excited about my book as I am, and so forth.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
I went into the green room because I didn't... Honestly, I didn't know I was allowed. And so, like, I didn't even think, oh, there might be a room for presenters or whatever. I didn't even think to look. And Corinne was like, I ran into her. I was looking through it was at a university, so there was a little place where you buy snacks and things. Store, I guess you might call those.
Yeah.
So I was just looking around like, man, maybe there's something I could grab in here or whatever. And Corinne's like, I just spent an hour eating Oreos in a room by myself. And I was like, where did you find Oreos? And she's like, let me show you the green room. And I was like, a green room? And
if you're a presenter, you get access to
I
that.
know, it's crazy. But I went into that room and like, there's all these authors who have, produced a lot of books or have a very good, very like strong reputation for writing or whatever. And I'm like, I'm a podcaster. We've got one thing going on this time, But it was fun.
I've been in the same place, so you keep going. They get to know you, and then it's easier and easier to get more people to show up on the show. And not only that, then they start talking about you because they know you.
Cool. Hey, hello. Welcome to the middle of the show. Hello. Okay. Hi. It's your co-host Steve here again. Just disrupting the whole episode to say, as always, thank you very much for listening. We really do appreciate it. The listeners are the best part of this show, in my opinion. You might feel differently. I don't know. Let me know. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you again very much for listening. Also, on this episode, we had author Daniel Swenson. Thank you again, Daniel, if you're listening, for coming on the show. It was a really good time. You can find Daniel's book on Amazon or in many other places. It's called The Shadow Above the Flames. It was published by Immortal Works. You can also find Daniel's podcast, Dungeon Crawlers, on dcrshow.com. Again, that's D, the letter C, R, show.com. If you're into going to websites, you can also go to yourplaindonuts.com. That's the website for this podcast. Head on over to yourplaindonuts.com to find our social media links. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. We always will mention on Facebook and Twitter that we are going to be taking questions or comments or anecdotes or whatever for that week's episode, and we'll mention the topic on Facebook and Twitter. And if you respond through those channels, you're much more likely than responding on the host's personal pages to get your question, comment, anecdote, whatever, read and answered on the show. So, again, head on over to yourplaindonuts.com to get a hold of that stuff. Also, if you could do us a huge favor, the most giantest possible thing you could ever possibly do, that would be for you to share this show with a friend who you think might like it. That's the only way we can really grow this podcast, is just organically through you, the listener, sharing the show with potential future listeners that you think would enjoy it. So, I would personally appreciate it very much if you would do that for me and me alone. Just kidding. If they would like it, they would enjoy it too. So do it for your friends. Anyway, one last thing that we commonly ask for you to do is to go leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. That just helps us. If you want to help out the podcast, it's a good way to show the people of Apple that we're getting some traction and that people like the show, and eventually could potentially put us into their new and noteworthy section, which would be sweet. So yeah, I think that's all I have for the middle section today. Yeah, hit us up on yourplaindonuts.com. Again, you can find Daniel's book, The Shadow Above the Flames, in many retail outlets, and you can find his podcast on dcrshow.com. It's called Dungeon Crawlers. So, cool. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of the show. Start on questions?
Sure.
It's not like we could go on.
We could keep talking.
So our first question is from a guy named Aldo.
Aldo.
Yeah, Aldo
Shout
guest
out.
hosted on this podcast.
Aldo.
What episode was it? Pop quiz.
The number?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just going to say 12 because
No.
12 is a number.
I could look it up.
It was
but
number
it
31.
Was it 31?
I don't know. I just made that up.
It was kind of recent.
So 31 is, if you swip it around, that's a 13. So I was really close.
Oh, you were close.
You were quite close. We'll give you that one.
You're the guest, so we'll give you that one.
Point for Daniel. Aldo has two questions that he wrote here.
Two questions.
So for context, if you haven't heard this podcast before, we always mention on our Facebook page and on our Twitter that we are going to be taking questions around a certain topic or the expertise of our guest if we happen to have one.
All right.
So if you answer questions through the main channels...
And not through our personal Facebook pages,
Yeah.
because we'll post there as well.
Yeah, we're just trying to get people to talk to us. But if you answer questions through the podcast channels, you're much more likely to get your stuff read and answered on the air. Ask questions, I guess I should say. Anyway, Aldo said, even though nerd culture is pretty mainstream now, do you find it hard to market fantasy books since it feels like comic book heroes are sort of the de facto nerd icon? And Aldo uses the term nerd as
this answer is going to be simple. No. I mean, I don't think it's hard at all because I think now more than ever it's popular.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves fantasy, sci-fi, and comic book stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the great thing where we are. And I know on our show we've talked about it's kind of the golden age of geeks because everything's available. You can go to Comic-Con, you see football jocks, you see D&D game players. They're not hiding in the closet. Everyone's out having fun. And everyone's enjoying things.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen, look at Larry Correa. You would never know that guy is one of the biggest geeks in the world. He loves playing D&D. He loves playing role-playing games. He paints minis, like, a lot. But if you were to walk into a room and see him, you would never think that.
Yeah.
You would think he's the football guy. He's the gun nut. And there's no way in heck he would ever do that. Let alone write an urban fantasy book.
Yeah.
So I think that it's really easy now because it's more popular than ever. I mean, when Tolkien came out and C.S. Lewis came out, it was a lot harder then.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it wasn't very popular fiction at that time. You know, I think with comic book movies being out there, we've got Maze Runner, we've got Harry Potter, all these movies out there just make it easier to get movies and books out into the mainstream, I think.
Yeah, so you don't feel like fantasy, because it's not sort of the main of the mainstream, you don't feel like that's more difficult of a sort of harvest to reap, because everything's kind of got
Correct.
popular
Now, where I think it is difficult is because it's now so mainstream that everyone wants their voice out there.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
so
true.
it's a lot harder to sell the book because you have, I mean, now that we have ebooks and everything like that, it's really easy to jump on Amazon and say, oh, I want that book, and that book.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a limited income like most of us do,
Yeah.
how do you choose those books?
Right.
Wouldn't it be weird to have an unlimited income?
That would be awesome.
Do only you have the unlimited income? Not anyone else? Just you?
Well, I mean, if everybody had an unlimited income,
then nobody has
yeah,
unlimited income.
Yeah. We would start bartering with something else. I'm not
Yes.
sure what, but
Soda
Souls.
pop caps.
that's right. Turns out it's pop caps in the future.
Just like Fallout.
Well, that's cool. That's good. I agree with you that Amazon is like both. Like Michael Brent Collins would not be who he is without Amazon, right?
I think he still would be who he is. He would just have a different avenue.
Sure.
Just because he is a very prolific author. I mean, his dad was an author as well.
Right.
And that's the reason he's chosen the way he is. He's just cut the middleman out.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't need a publisher. I don't need the editor, because he's got his dad. He's got him.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give it and collect the money for myself.
Well, and he's like a bestseller on Amazon.
Yeah, he is.
He does not make money for sure.
And
so
that's his ad. Now, we take Amazon out of the equation. I'm sure he would have found another way. Maybe he would have started his own publishing company at that point or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I still think he would have found a way, but it makes it a lot easier for authors to get their material out there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of the material and content is not as clean as others.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Is that my experience is that it's kind of like I'm hesitant to buy books from new authors because
it feels like a crapshoot.
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
And
Bit.
to be fair, that's how it is no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, even this is my first book, and even then, I'm hesitant because, well, how well is everyone going to receive it? Are they going to like it? And that's the thought that goes through my head every day. How many people are actually liking this book?
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, it's easier when you go into a bookstore, you go on Amazon. Let's look at, R.A. Salvatore, Bob Salvatore.
Sure.
He's got how many books out there? Oh, yeah. We know if he's got that many books, it's a guaranteed good book, and we can keep reading.
Yeah.
Brandon Sanderson, same thing.
Yeah.
Or Robert Jordan.
Well, and even sometimes those are a little bit hit and miss, right?
They are.
But the quality is much more consistently there than just some random.
But the
person off
chances
street.
of the book you pulling off from one of those guys is a lot higher that it's going to be a good book for you. Instead of, when you go in there and you pull off that one book. And, that's why on my show, why we do pull out those first-time authors and stuff like that, to give them a fair shot.
Yeah.
Because they're first-time authors, it's hard for them to get press about their book and people that get excited about it. And more often than not, their books are great.
Yeah.
It's just they have no word of mouth and they don't have 2 or 3. Kara's a different one because she has several out there.
Yeah, most of her books, I was surprised to see, anyway, sorry, this is a little bit tangenty, but most of her books were romance novels, actually. I was like, wow.
And you do see that a lot. You see where an author is, writing one way, and then they're like, I wonder if I can do something else. I mean, Stephen King, for example, wrote horror novels for the longest time, and then he decided to write Eye of the Dragon, which is a fantasy novel, and it's like, what? Okay, and then we, it goes back to horror, and we get these other ones every now and then, like the Dark Tower series.
Yeah.
Which is going to be an awesome movie when it comes out.
I know.
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey, Idris Elba.
Really crossing my fingers and hoping it's going to be good.
My only concern, almost everything that's come out that's been Stephen King has not been the greatest.
Yeah, I have a suspicion about that actually. I could be totally wrong, but I've heard that he's a pants author. He's a seat of the pants style author, and I wonder if partially because of that, he's like, I don't know how it's going to end, and then eventually it just ends, and it may or may not be very satisfying.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's.
There's also some things that just don't translate well from books to
to movies.
And also, there's sometimes where an author is building something up for the next book.
That's true.
And so, but it's not pertinent to the main storyline, so that gets dropped out.
Man, I
Or there's
experienced that
sometimes
recently.
you just get a screenwriter that just messes things up. I mean, look at Aragon. I mean, they completely hosed that movie so that they can't have a sequel.
Mhm.
Because they took out the dwarves, they took out the elves. That's the next book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Interesting.
And it happens.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to. Is there another question?
We have no. That was the end of that question.
Okay.
Aldo had another question. He said it's kind of a stereotypical author question. What are some of your inspirations for writing, and do you seek out sources outside of literature for
Three
inspiration?
questions, although question the limit there.
Whoa.
Well, those two are related.
Repeat that again because I.
Okay, so. What are your inspirations for writing, and do you seek sources outside of literature specifically for writing inspiration?
Yes. Okay. So for outside, my fight scenes, stuff like that, I look at YouTube videos to see how people move. There's sometimes I'll actually pretend fight, or like my current one I'm working on. I wanted to know how it felt, the particular type of gun in this setting, how it would feel. So I got a replica and held it. It's really front heavy. And it's like, okay, so you got to really pull up on that to fire straight. So I'm trying to get that accuracy. As well as, it's a Weird West. I don't know if you know what that is.
I could guess.
So Weird West is basically a Western setting with fantasy elements in it. So that's what I'm currently writing now.
Like
And-
that
Cowboys
series
vs.
from Brandon
Aliens.
Sanderson.
Yeah, so like the Alloy of Law.
That's
portion.
right. That's
Yeah.
what it's called. I couldn't
'Cause
remember.
I
the name
love
of it,
spaghetti westerns,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, okay, I want to write a western. It'll probably be the only one I ever write, and it's going to kind of tie into things. But I wanted that, but I want that realism. So I've been watching a lot of westerns, just to kind of get how they talk, the dialogue, the clothing, as well as reading other western books. I'm kind of pulling from those.
Did you see Logan?
Yes.
The movie Logan?
Yes.
I've heard it said that that's more of a western than it is a science fiction.
It kind of
superhero
is.
movie.
It is kind of a western in a future day setting. So it
Right.
does,
It's not a classic western, but
Yeah.
it has that. It has the western style, I guess.
But I mean, a great modern day western. Two that come to mind is 3:10 to Yuma and The Magnificent Seven that just recently came out. Great, fun movies, and I kind of feel like westerns are kind of a dying thing. But they're fun.
Yeah. Well, and I think it kind of just depends on the movie, because some westerns will like really blow up, like No Country for Old Men, or what was the other one that the one about oil. Oh shoot, that's around the same time as No Country for Old Men.
I can't think of it.
The only thing I can think of is that stupid Blood and Oil series that they tried to
I'm
film here.
thinking of how
terrible.
I drink your milkshake. Is that No Country for Old Men, or is that I drink your milkshake? Daniel Day-Lewis. Oh, I can't remember.
Oh.
Anyway, no.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember. Anyways.
Lincoln.
No, I mean-
It was Lincoln. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, but there's always great opportunities to pull ideas. Whether it's in movies, video games, YouTube videos, or anything like that. It's you can pull that in and get an idea for characters, for story arcs, for fight sequences, and anything like that.
I know I've heard a lot of people who like make writers and various other people who make content just find inspiration in random stuff where you're like, oh, that's an interesting idea. What if it was like this? And that's kind of like...
I mean, to be on the lines of that, last November, I was just on Facebook. I don't know why. I was on there, and I was just scrolling down my feed, and there was this video of this old ghost town in California called Bodie, California, and it's cursed. It's a ghost. It's an old mining settlement, and it goes on talking about how no one lives there anymore after like 1942 or something like that. Everyone abandoned it, but people come and visit, and there's this shadow that always roams the land that people have talked about, and everyone that has taken something from that town as kind of a memorabilia, whether it's like a doll or something. People just left everything there,
Mm-hmm.
like plates, forks, just like up and left, all their possessions behind. And anyone that has taken something from that town, mysterious accidents have just happened to them, like non-stop, like until they return the item. And all the items have been returned with like these apology letters and stuff like that, and then everything stops.
Weird.
It was so I watched this. I'm like, huh. Well, and so I looked it up. It was a mining town about the time period I wanted for my book. Has this dark figure that patrols it. I'm like, huh. This fits perfectly. and then I just like wrote all these notes and all these ideas, and I'm like, okay, there's my next book.
Nice.
Cool.
That's
From
awesome.
some random weird video that was on Facebook.
Yeah, that's great.
That's cool.
Really neat.
So what about the book that you came out with then?
So,
So it's kind
Shadow-
of like a, I guess, military.
So it's
type
military science fantasy.
Of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is set in the future. I know a couple of people are like, so what? That is this like modern day? I'm like, no, it's like 15 years in the future. We've got cabs that drive everyone everywhere.
Yeah.
No one's driving it. It's a computer. No one really drives much. What vehicles the military have are all electrical, where the outside shell is actually an entire solar panel.
Oh, cool.
Instead of having servers, they have data cores, which are about the size of a softball. And so we said it in the future, fossil fuels are gone. So people are like freaking out.
Oh,
That's
right.
why we've gone to electric. And while drilling, this corporation unleashes a dragon, which starts destroying the world. And yeah, so that's when all the fun begins.
Nice.
Nice. So where did you get your inspiration to start that book then?
So that
Since
book,
that's your first book.
yeah. So I've kind of written off and on for years. Going back to D&D, I've written adventures that are thick and technical, manual almost like, with vast stories, and I've had friends that are like, you should write, and I was like, nah. I went to a convention back in 2015 called Conduit. It was a smaller convention that was here.
I think I remember hearing the name somewhere.
And James Wymore, which is also one of the guys with Immortal Works, I was sitting there, and he's part of the Space Balrogs, and they go to conventions and do improv, comedy type game shows, which I think maybe you guys saw with Craig Nybo, where he was Count Dracula or something. Okay.
No.
It was at LTV this last year. Anyways, so they're a particular character, and they have to then convince the audience to join their side to win. And so I've done that a couple times, and I was sitting in the audience watching. It's like, you could write a book. I've seen how prepared you are, because when I went to that, I was the Elementals. I came with like 300 pages of information, which I never used.
Nice.
But he's like, yeah, you do the research. I've seen what you've written. You could easily do a book. I'm like, okay. Yeah, maybe. It's like, no, you should do it. I would publish that. Because he was a acquisitions editor for Curiosity Quills at the time.
Oh, cool.
I'm like, okay. Well, I'll see. Went home. Talked to my wife. She's like, yeah, you should do it. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I went to bed. In the middle of the night, I woke up and wrote the first paragraph. Like, I grabbed a piece of paper, pen, wrote it. Went back to bed. Woke up the next morning. 3 months later, I wrote a book. Over that next 3 months. That first paragraph's still in the book. In the beginning.
Cool.
But yeah, the idea came to me, dragon, fossil fuels are gone, because I was complaining about gas prices at the time. And might as well. And so it worked really well.
Good. What was your... So...
And
James,
I love dragons.
Yeah.
So who doesn't?
For
Dragons are
sure.
exciting.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool and crazy.
Yes.
Anyway, I got all imagining about dragons.
Exactly.
So what was so James Wymore said he would publish it. When you finished the book, what was it like to get to from the point of like starting to write the book to when it was getting published? Like what did that look like for you?
So it's going from starting to published is a long road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize how long it is. So I wrote the book in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I took another year editing it, cleaning it up, making it look good. In that time, I had sent it out to Jason King, Michael Brent Collings, and Dave Butler to kind of, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
What needs some fixing? Dave Butler gave me some great advice. So did Jason King, and Michael Brent Collings gave me some great advice. There was one scene where he's like, these creatures, I don't know if I'm supposed to be laughing or afraid.
Yeah.
If I'm supposed to be laughing, you nailed it. If I'm supposed to be afraid, it might need some work.
Yeah.
I needed to go back and do some work. But, it wasn't like, man, this sucks. This is horrible. This is what you need to do. And that's what was really awesome. It was just, hey, this was broken. Heck, this, you need to fix it. They didn't tell me how to fix it because it was mine. Just that it needed to be fixed. So I went through that process. And then at that point, Jason had started Immortal Works, and he had actually come to me. I had already tried querying a little bit. That's a rough process, doing agent queries or even queries to editors.
I think Corinne mentioned that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is when you need to don the codpiece of steel and play Rochambeau with the submissions editor, because they can be brutal.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be nice. You hope for the nice ones, because sometimes it's like, no, we're not interested. Some of them are just like, this sucks because of boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when that codpiece of iron works.
Yeah.
But no, luckily Jason came to me and said, hey, I want to publish this. And this was, he's like, he was even willing to take the first draft. I'm like, yeah, well, I've made it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was nice that even at the first draft you could see
Yeah.
the diamond that was in the giant coal pile. So I sent it to them. He talked to the powers that be over there, and then he came back and said, yeah, we want it. And I signed the contract, and then from there, you have to go through editors, where they're going through the content, they're sending stuff back. And as much as you would think that is an awesome process, it sucks. Because this is yours.
Yeah.
And then they're saying, this doesn't work, or this sucks, or this...
Yeah.
Not in that fashion, but my editor was great. But it was really hard for me at first, because here's another person that has no clue what I'm envisioning and is tearing it apart in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
It's like having your prized dog or child there, and they just start ripping an arm off or a foot off.
What a visual.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it really feels like. And so there was a couple times I'd have to okay, I'll come back a day or two later, and then I'd have to get into a better mind frame, just thinking this person is actually trying to make this better. Mm-hmm. They're not trying to destroy it. They're trying to make it better, because they succeed if I succeed.
Yeah.
Type
right.
situation.
Yeah.
But it's hard. You have to cool off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that a couple times, actually, from people dealing with editors. They're like, I was really mad when they first said some stuff, but when I came back to it a couple days later, I was like, they're right.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I mean, and a lot of times they were. And, there's one situation where I have a creature that's a sewer monster, and my editor changed it to an alligator. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why'd you do that? This is a lizard. Yeah. More like an iguana type thing that mutated, and it's clinging on the wall. Alligators don't do that. Mm-hmm. It's got its tongue zipping out, tasting the air. Alligators don't. They have nostrils. They can smell. And she's like, I'm like, so, I mean, I was enraged because this, took up several chapters where it's just changed, and I'm like, okay. And so I talked to a few other authors, and like, well, just open a dialogue with your editor, and find out why they felt that change needed to be. And really, what it came down to is a few chapters before, I kind of set myself up where they were going down to the sewers, and someone joked, oh, great, now we're going to run into a mutant alligator like you see in the movies.
Oh.
And so, even though that was just supposed to be a funny pun there, that in her mind, that did it.
That was like foreshadowing.
Yeah, and so, because I hadn't described the creature enough, she immediately thought mutant alligator.
Yeah.
So I had to add some description more into that and kind of explain more when the creature first showed up. And I did that, sent it to her wife. She said, okay, great, this works. So, in the future, for anyone listening, if they're doing that, that's the best advice I can give is, kind of have that dialogue with your editor. Sometimes there are editors that are a little hard-nosed.
Yeah.
But in most cases, they're willing to work with you and just open that dialogue, and you're good.
Cool. Corinne actually asked a question.
Corinne!
She's great. We saw her a lot this weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
She said, did you pull any experiences, did you pull from any personal experiences to write the book?
Oh, man. Corinne! Dang it. So, yes, there are some things in there that are personal. So in the book, the two boys have a grandfather that they lost. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of memories of going fishing with their grandfather. Mm-hmm. Until something tragically happens, and then it never happens. That's pretty much me, in a way. My grandpa and I, growing up, I was his fishing buddy. We'd always go fishing. Mm-hmm. Then he had a heart attack, and then the fishing stopped. And then, several years later, he ended up passing away, and I've never gone fishing since, which is my own. Well, I sort of, but not like I used to. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of my own fault. So that was kind of a nod towards my grandpa, who, my grandpa always encouraged me growing up. You can do anything. And in fact, I say something at the very beginning of the book, and so that was definitely for him, and a personal thing for me that I added in there, kind of as a hidden thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's neat. So we had one other question.
Yes.
It's the final question.
The final.
It's from Lindsay E. She said, "What has been the hardest part of the process with writing your book?" So, was it dealing with editors, or what's been the hardest part for you so far?
The honest to God answer is reviews.
Reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was curious about how you were gonna feel. Like, that would be the scariest part for me too. I think is like, okay, I can't do anything about this.
Well, so
if
here's
everybody
the thing.
hates it?
So here's the thing. So the book is theirs to send out, and I know they were sending out the ARCs. Mm-hmm. And then I sat there, and I didn't see any reviews. I didn't hear anything. I was like, oh, look at this great review from so and so. Nothing. Then the release date got closer. Still nothing. And I'm just like, so does everyone hate this? What? Yeah. And so anxiety kicks in, thoughts start kicking in. The book finally goes out, and then I saw my first review. Wasn't too bad. It was pretty good. Yeah, there were some things, but they were saying that the book lacked. But on the flip side, they were also saying suggestions. So it was very constructive criticism, in my opinion. And then the next one after that was just the lowball 1-star kick in the nuts.
Oh, jeez.
And I don't even think the guy read the whole thing. I think he just read, how on Amazon you can get the sample. And I can just assume that's all he read. And that was hard.
Yeah.
Of course I was talking to my other friends that are authors, and they're like, you just got to deal with it. You got to roll with the punches. But that's really the hardest part, because I'm really excited about the book. It's awesome. I know what's in it. I love it. But do other people love it? Or do other people hate it? And if they hate it, people can be vicious now.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And you just go on Facebook and see how all the negative comments some people make about things. And it's just like, we're in a... It's great that the internet is the way it is, but I think at the same time it makes it really safe for people to say whatever the crap they want, because there's no fear that it's going to come back on them.
There's a feeling of anonymity. Even when your name is attached to it, people are like,
so
I don't care.
Weird. Actually, so I'll make a confession about something I do on Facebook. If someone is making comments on things and they're being either super racist, like super unprofessional, like being a terrible... you have to be a terrible human being for me to be like, that's really awful. So I'll click on their profile, and if it says where they work, I will send their work an email about that employee's behavior online.
Wow.
That is... Because if you're going to put yourself out there, and you're going to say terrible things to people and be like, go kill yourself, that's awful. One person said that, on some... It was some mental health thing.
No, I've seen stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. And they worked at, guess where? A mental health facility. I'm like, you know what? I normally wouldn't say things. I think I wrote an email like, I normally wouldn't like write to you, but this person works with these people. And I think you really should know.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's actually a large university, and the name escapes me, back east, that has actually been denying students.
Harvard.
It's Harvard.
Yep,
okay.
Harvard
Had been denying students because of posts on their social media pages.
Wow.
Yep, they did like some crazy
And
Nazi stuff, and
yeah.
like 21 students have been denied.
Yeah,
their
and now financial aid or something like that.
Yeah.
But not only that, I know companies that will go look at your social media pages and see what you're saying and what you're posting, and if they think it disagrees with the culture of their company, they won't hire you.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's where society is going, where you can't just blurt out wherever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people that are on there just going, F this, F that, because of this and that, and traffic and blah, blah. I understand you're frustrated, but
Yeah.
people are seeing that.
Yeah.
I mean, and not
Grandmas.
only, it's not only your friends, their friends are seeing that, because sometimes that randomly
Yeah.
pops up in their feed.
Yeah.
And so it's just crazy.
It is. It's kind of nuts.
So that's
But
my confession.
at the same
That's your
time,
confession.
I like people shouldn't be garbage people anyway.
Yeah.
No, I agree. There are times when I will post and I'm venting.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not being a jerk I'm not naming people, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying, I'm just like, this is how I feel, something happened,
Yeah.
and because of that, I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, F the world, F
Yeah.
this,
Yeah. Like, all my coworkers suck and I hope they
Yeah.
die in a fire. Like, whoa! Like, dude, Tom.
like,
down.
this last presidential election, everyone was just at each other, and I was like, whoa,
I had to like take a break from
can we
Facebook for a minute.
can we just get along?
Yeah.
It was
So-
pretty
I mean,
bad.
everyone has their choice in who they get to elect for. That's the beauty of this country, and let's just get along. We're all Americans.
yeah.
Whether I decide to vote for this person or that person, or you voted for this or that person,
Mhm.
who cares?
Yeah.
Oh man, the hate messages and posts that came flooding into me from people, how horrible I was and I was wrong, and I was just asking for people to let's get along.
Oh man. So you posted like, hey, I've seen a lot of people fighting. Let's not fight so much.
Yeah.
And people were like, screw you. You don't care
Yeah.
about this country.
Yeah,
You're like,
you hate me because you're against Obamacare. I'm like, you want me to die or something like that? I'm like, what? I was just saying let's get along. So after that, I just posted a bunch of pictures of cute baby animals.
fair
Hey,
enough.
what can you do?
Like, since there's a lot of negativity on the internet right
Oh,
now,
sorry.
enjoy
Like,
some
with
baby
Steve.
animals.
Yeah.
Because even me saying something incited a fight, and I didn't want that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, hey.
Yeah. But
So-
that would be an awesome premise for a book, though.
Baby animals?
No. Just social media and people fighting. Like, there's a whole battle just fought on social media.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the outcome is, because of that, they win a country or something like that. That would be
Oh
awesome.
man,
Yeah.
that's a crazy idea. It sort of reminds me of like the genesis of The Handmaid's Tale, kind of.
Oh.
For some reason, I don't know why that made me think.
I
of
read
that
that book recently,
But-
Really?
actually.
The whole premise just is like popping in my head. Like, there's this whole battle, and it ends up, this 14-year-old ends up taking over, like, we could say Germany or something. Because I don't know, have you ever gone online to play a video game and you get that like potty mouth guy that's like
Yeah.
calling you every name in the book, and you end up looking at the profile, it's a 14-year-old snot-nosed kid?
Yeah, haven't personally played, but Otto has played a game of The Last of Us online,
Uh-huh.
and every once in a while there'll be a child. I'm saying a child because I'm pretty sure it's like a 8-9-year-old child just screams, like they'll get shot. They're like screaming, like not even words. I'm like, who let you on here?
Yeah.
Who let you on
Who
here?
are you?
That's funny.
But
Yeah.
yeah, some kids, man, kids these days.
No, again, I just think it all comes down to they can do whatever they want because they're hidden behind. If someone was to walk up to you, they wouldn't call you names and say you're a
Right.
dirtbag or whatever to your face. They'd be like, "Oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah, that
Yeah.
thing you did,
Yeah.
something like that." They'd kind of
Yeah.
downplay it a lot. Where
Yeah.
now they're just like, boom, they just unload like
Yeah.
vomit nastiness.
Well, and it's crazy because it's like, really, if we were having that conversation just over coffee or whatever, it's like, even if we disagree about politics or whatever the subject may be, we're probably not gonna like bite at each other over in conversation, right?
No,
but
I just disagree with you. I don't think your opinion's right.
Yeah.
It's not like, dude,
yeah,
we're out of here.
Why do you hate this country?
Yeah.
Why do you? It's like,
You're wanting my grandma dead.
Yeah, and I think part of it
I
too
hope
is you
you
can't
die.
detect like tone through
yeah.
messages too. So someone will be like, "Well, I don't think that's true." And like, why do you get to say that I'm wrong? Blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, you're so mad.
Yeah.
I have a suspicion actually that, and this might I'm trying to think of it for myself more than anybody else, but I have a feeling that sometimes people read things in a negative way
They do.
because they're thinking negatively personally. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree with that. There has been a number of times I have sent emails in a very passive tone. There is I'm not saying anything that can start an argument.
Yeah.
But the email I get back is like this massive email of hate describing how this, I could simply just say, hey, sorry, I forgot to drop off the box of blue pens, but next time I'll bring you 2 boxes of blue pens. And then I just get this venomous email of hate and how
could you be sarcastic about
because
the
I
blue
didn't
pens?
drop off the blue pens. Their universe spiraled into the depths of hell, and they got into a car accident, and it's my fault. And blah, 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 blah. And he was like, "I'm sorry. I'll bring you 3 boxes of blue pens." It's just strange, and it's because they're reading it negatively, they're just assuming there's a tone there.
Right.
Of sarcasm or something, when really you're just, no, hey, sorry, I didn't get that. I'm gonna bring you 2. Just be a nice guy.
Yeah. But I think what I'm getting at is that it's not reflective on what you said, but on how that person is reading it, right? So when I get mad at people online, like, I probably should be like, maybe they're not being mean. Maybe I'm the one who's being mean.
This is a great principle. I can't remember the gentleman that taught me that, but the principle of kung fu. If you've ever watched kung fu, their hands are always open. They're never clenched. They're always open to accept so that they can move. And the main principle is, whatever someone, when they're fighting at you, you use that. It's their aggression, use that against them. So if someone is yelling at you and screaming at you, it's not because of you. It's because that's how they feel.
Right.
If someone's saying, I hate you, they really don't. They hate themselves. And that's just coming out at you because they're, what is the word now? It just escaped me. They're projecting it upon you.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what it is, I think. A lot of people are unhappy or they're upset, and, you just happen to be in that spot when the bucket tipped and now it's all coming at you.
Yeah.
Because it's easier for us, instead of saying, oh man, I screwed up, to say, you screwed up. That's how I see
human
that
nature.
it work in human nature.
That's a message for all of you retail workers out there who, because that coupon was expired, you're apparently the devil and you're the worst. You're not the worst. That person just hates themselves. So, there you go.
Boom, roasted.
No, I mean, really, retail is probably one of the toughest jobs, besides being someone that works at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Just because when someone comes in, more often than not, they're nice. But when you get that ornery person,
it just ruins your day.
they probably had a bad day.
Yeah.
They've probably been cut off in traffic, or their kid's been screaming all day, or something has happened to them. And it's not really you.
Yeah.
And if you can just say, hey, I'm sorry, and not take it personally, more likely, they suddenly deflate.
Yeah.
But if you say, what the crap, and fight back with them, it's just going to escalate more. And then you're going to have a bad day, and they're going to have a bad day, and you could end up getting fired.
Yeah.
And then they're still going to get their discount.
That's right. I don't know. My wife worked in retail for a long time, and she actually worked for a company that had a pretty good attitude about that kind of stuff, where they would normally, like, if a customer had a problem, they would be quick to solve it. But people knew that about the company, and
so they would do it.
Some people would try to take advantage of it.
And unfortunately, that's human nature too.
Yeah. But anyway, we've been going for like an hour and 10. We should probably end the. We finished all the questions.
We did. Should
Wow.
we talk about your podcast for a minute?
Oh yeah,
Sure.
We, like,
that's
mentioned
right.
it at
We
the
mentioned
That's
beginning.
okay.
We
So
never-
Dungeon Crawlers, or Dungeon Crawlers Radio, we kind of have two names there. We've kind of dropped the radio because we were doing YouTube stuff, but either way. It's a geek podcast. We cover all things geek. So we do movie reviews, we do author interviews, we do game designer interviews or reviews. We kind of cover everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. It's a panel style, so kind of like this, but with more people.
Yeah.
Which is always fun. And we do 3 shows a week, which is insane.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have a new show that comes out every week or every day or every 3
days.
Yeah, I'm losing it now. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
3 days a week.
3 days a week. They're 30 minutes long, and hopefully they're entertaining.
I would think so. You have how many
We
people?
have 150,000 subscribers.
There's the number.
have-
That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Or more right now. I don't know. I haven't checked, but we do have listeners around the world, which is really awesome.
Yeah,
Because
it's really cool.
I started out in my friend's basement. It was just him and I.
Mm-hmm.
Back then we did 2-hour shows, which is not a good formula.
Yeah.
They're very long, and we had no guests, and it was just us talking, and it was boring. So we've gotten better.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's encouraging actually hearing from someone who has been having a podcast for a long time and has been seeing some success.
Yeah.
And I asked you at FyreCon, like, what does the first year normally look like for people? And you were like, it wasn't good for us.
No, I mean it was a lot of work, and we didn't do much. I
Yeah.
mean, the pinnacle of that first year was when someone recognized who we were at an Albertsons. We were standing in line.
That's
like,
awesome.
Hey, I know you.
Yeah.
You were those guys.
Yeah.
And we were like, dude, we're awesome.
Yeah.
And then we never heard it again.
Yeah.
And then after that, we started getting recognized. We were going to cons, and people were like, oh, yeah, I know who you are. Or we would be at somewhere and like, oh, hey, let me introduce you to these guys. So that's really cool. And it eventually gets to that point. But it's a lot of work. I mean, it's not back in the days where podcast was amazing, and you had Adam Carolla, which he still does a podcast, but he makes lots of money because he's Adam Carolla.
Yeah.
He's got a name. Brandon Sanderson and the other guys with writing excuses, they have a name now. But before they were doing it, even before they got famous, and it was doing okay.
Yeah, it's funny you listen to the first episodes and they talk about how Brandon and Dan are writers and they're just releasing their first books.
Yeah.
And Howard is way more famous than them.
Yes.
And they're talking about and it's so different now, like, because Howard's not famous, of course.
Yeah.
Howard's awesome, but like. And then they added Mary later, but like Brandon has grown in fame quite a bit because of the.
It's the scales,
Yeah.
You had Howard was the famous one out of them.
Yeah.
And then Howard has kind of slowly gone up.
Yeah.
Where they've shot up.
Yeah.
And they've peaked a lot higher. But and it's just because Howard was more established at the time.
Yeah.
And all of them are equally famous in their own respects.
Yeah.
But it's just it is what it is. And they have more pull and more attraction because of course everyone wants to be a writer like Brandon Sanderson and know how he did it.
Yeah.
Even though you listen to Brandon, it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
He had a lot of books that weren't accepted until he got that first one published. And that's the one thing a lot of people don't get is you're not always lucky on that first go around, and even if you are, it's not as successful as Christopher Paolini and Aragon. That's a fluke. J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter, but even then she had several rejections underneath her.
Well, and she started her next series under a pseudonym,
and it didn't do
and it got rejected a bunch of times. Which I think is really, she has posted on Twitter like her rejection letters for that next series, which I think is really interesting. But
the good thing is she's willing to do that.
Yeah.
She's saying, hey, look, even me, as big as I am, still gets rejected.
Yeah. And I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing about any kind of media is that it's literal. It's not for everyone, right? Even people. I mean, the reviews on Elantris, which is Brandon's first book, Brandon Sanderson's. they're mixed. You know,
It's a good book. It really is. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But there are people out there that think it sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, and they've dropped 1-star reviews.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I mean, that's just the nature. I mean, how many I know people that love that new Fantastic Four movie that came out.
Oh, people like that? I mean,
some people have.
Sorry if I offended you.
I would say the majority don't.
Yeah. Who are you? Come forward. I want to know who you are.
There is someone out there that does like it.
Yeah.
And so it's just what it is.
Oh man, that just rocks my world. Somebody likes that movie. Somebody likes anything, I suppose.
That's true.
Yes.
Somebody. I mean, think about the weird foods that they had in the 70s, where they made gelatin everything. Like everything was like a gelatin dessert.
Yeah.
Come on,
Ugh.
Carrots and Jello. You don't like that?
Ugh.
Carrots and pineapple.
I
Yeah.
Oh, you're such
Jell-O?
a food snob, Alicia.
You know, I'm a foodie, and
What, you like because you
if
like
you can't
food?
even start making the 5 French mother sauces, don't even talk to me.
Wow. All right.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for coming
Yeah, no
on.
problem.
It's
Yeah,
been
thank
really
you.
fun.
This is really fun, and I don't know. It's cool to hear your process and Corinne's process of like going through and writing and
Yeah, I
publishing.
mean, I'm a panzer too, so I just write by the seat of my pants.
That's awesome.
You know, I hate outlining.
It just depends on who you are.
Yeah.
I think I wonder how Stephen King handles. Sorry to go back on this old tangent, but I wonder how he handles like. I feel like at a certain point, because you're Stephen King, you start getting like yes men. You know, like editors will be like, "It's Stephen King," you know, whatever. And I wonder if he is like, and I'm sure he is, but I wonder if he's like vigilant about people starting to let stuff through just because he wrote it. You know what I mean?
I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
I mean, just it does come with the territory. You know, it's like it's Stephen King. It's gonna sell.
Yeah.
It could just say, "This is a giant pile of crap" on every page, and they'd still probably say, "It's Stephen King. It's gonna sell."
Stephen King's doing some really weird stuff
This
now.
is really
it's amazing.
artsy, yeah.
I mean, and that's probably what it's going to be like. Just like if Brandon puts something out, people are going to go buy it because it says Brandon Sanderson or Kevin Nilsson.
Right.
You just reach a point of notoriety where people are like, all right, it's got to be good.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of where we said at the beginning, where there's that big long list of books people talk about them, they're going to pick it up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think there is a point where he does have a lot more creative freedom now than he ever did before.
Yeah, well, and that's why, like, the Stormlight Archive is even a thing. You know, he's like,
yeah.
this is a 12-book series. The outline is literally 12
They're
books
over
long.
1,000 pages long.
Yeah, and
but they're awesome. They are.
well, and that's part of the reason that Sanderson didn't sell many, like, books to publishers for a long time is because he's like, I write 300,000 word books, and they're like, we can't sell that from a brand new author, you know? Like,
No, it is true.
So,
But he is to a point where he can do that.
yeah. Well, and his Elantris is like really long. He just happened to meet some editor at Tor and was like, hey, this is my thing. And they're like, cool, it sounds good, send it to me. And he sent it to him and got published, you know? So,
I can't wait for the sequel. Yeah.
oh yeah, I read the short story. Anyway, we got to end the podcast.
All right.
So
Otherwise, I will keep talking.
cool.
So,
Where can people find your stuff? What's
Yeah.
the best way for them to get a hold of your book and
the
the
book-
Dungeon Crawlers stuff?
So, Dungeon Crawlers, you can go to dcrshow.com or dungeoncrawlersradio.com. dcrshow.com is faster and easier to type. All of our shows are posted there, again, 3 days a week. Or you can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, or Podbean. I think I remember all of those. As far as the book, it's available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, pretty much anywhere online you can find it, or at immortal-works.com. You can buy it from there. Find me on Twitter at Daniel Swenson77 or just author Daniel Swenson on Facebook, and I post a lot of fun stuff there. And that's where you can catch me to find out what conventions I'm going to be at, or even chat with me, because I'm constantly on Facebook, just because my day job allows me to. And yes, I have to work. I'm not cool enough to just write for a living. That would be awesome.
That's kind of a theme, though. A lot of authors don't get to write.
No, they
for
don't.
just
They
a
don't.
living.
And you know, it's not easy to do. It really isn't. So that's the best place to get me. And of course, pick up a copy of The Shadows Above the Flame. You'll love it. It's a military fantasy. Those of you that don't really know what that is, it just means it's an urban fantasy with military aspects. You know, the main characters are in the military, so there's a dragon, and everyone loves dragons, and it's awesome. Lots of fights and explosions and cool stuff in it.
Cool. Sweet. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem.
Hey,
this was awesome.
We'll be back with Plain Donuts next week. Goodbye, everyone. Bye.
See ya.